So we're just going to wait for him until we have a quorum. Thanks. We'll start the Tiburon Design Review Board meeting for March 2nd, 2023. Call to order and roll call. Oh, it's okay.
Board Member Malat.
Here.
Board Member Chong.
Here.
And Vice Chair Kim.
Here.
All present.
All present. So at this point, we have oral communications, and this is where anybody who wants to address the DRB with anything that's not on the agenda, please do so at this time. You have no, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. So if there's an agenda item, a non-agenda item, this is an opportunity right now to talk. Is there anybody who wishes to make a comment? Okay. We will move on to staff briefing.
I have no briefing this evening. The only thing I would like to state is now that we're in person, you are no longer required to make a roll call where you call each person's name out for every item. You can solely ask for a aye and nays, unless, of course, there's some, you can't really understand where people are, then you can of course, do a roll call. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that in the beginning.
And also, I just want to make mention, I have with me today another attorney from our firm, Miriam Slayman, who is sitting in the back. She may be sitting in this seat one day, so I just wanted to introduce her to our board, as you guys might get to work with her. And I'm embarrassing her now. It is her birthday, so. But we won't sing to her.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And now we'll go to the election of the chair and the vice chair. I have no idea what we're supposed to do with how we're supposed to proceed from here.
So the way in which you proceed here is that you open it up to the floor for nominations for chair and then vice chair. And that's pretty much how it's done. So you can open it up to your board members to see where they are with it and go from there.
Okay, so any nominations for chair?
I nominate Vice Chair Kim to be chair.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
We should, this is an item on the agenda, so we might want to open it up to the public for any comments.
Okay.
Just a quick question. So there were two prior board members whose terms ran out.
Yep.
One and automatically go back in. Is that correct?
Their terms ran out and they decided not to re-pursue it.
So you find two others, so you always have two?
We will be, appointments to the board are done through the town council, and that'll be done there. So we don't do that through these design review board meetings. So at this moment, all we're talking about is whether or not they're making nominations for who will become the chair for whoever is on the board for now and the vice chair. Yeah, so we have, two is a quorum right now, yes.
And then when you get two more, three to five.
Yes.
Okay, should we have a roll call or no? Should we just vote?
You don't need a,
It's like the old days.
you don't need a roll call. It's like Zoom. You're muted, Gina. You do not need a roll call. You just need to have ayes or nays. So you can ask for all those in favor, all those opposed.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
You are now the chair of the design review board. Now we need to have a nomination of a vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Board Member Watt as the vice chair. Oh, that's how it's going to be, all right.
I'd like to nominate Board Member Chong to be Vice Chair.
I do want to make sure that you speak into the mic and that your mics are on at all times because I'm not hearing you from this side. So
I'd like
thank
to
you.
nominate Chair Chong, Member Chong to be Vice Chair.
Do you accept?
Is there a second?
Should we have a vote now? All in favor?
We need a second,
We need a second.
and I mean,
I'll second it. We'll have any comments from the public? No. I'm sorry? Okay, and so let's have a vote now. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Vice Chair Chong. Now we'll go through
Thank
the
you.
minutes, and we'll look through the minutes from February 16th, 2023. Are there any comments or changes to the minutes?
None that I saw.
Does anyone want to make a motion to adopt the minutes?
I make a motion that we adopt the amendments from the, I'm sorry, what's the date again? 16th Design Review Board meeting, February 16th Design Review Board meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, they've been hereby approved. Now we're going to the public hearings. The first item on the agenda is 163 Avenida Miraflores. So let me tell you the rules of engagement in this process. The first is that the applicant has 5 to 20 minutes to do a presentation, and then there's an opportunity for the DRB to ask questions to staff or the applicant. Then there's public testimony, and 3 minutes for each speaker. And members of the audience may not allocate their testimony time to other speakers. Then, after the conclusion of public testimony, the applicant may respond to the public comments, and the applicant has 5 minutes. Then the DRB closes the public testimony period, deliberates, and votes, and that's it. So if we could have the applicant.
This is actually an appeal, Chair Kim, so
Oh.
it's the appellant that has that time period, and then the applicant for the project that's being appealed has a right to 10 minutes.
Okay,
So the applicant themselves has the appellant, excuse me, has 20 minutes.
okay. Is there someone keeping time?
We can keep time for you if you'd
Okay,
like.
thank you. Okay, so if the appellant can come up and provide testimony for 10 minutes.
So, let me, you have to sit at the mic. I'm sorry, this is all a new process.
Yeah, bear with us a little bit as we all get used to being back here.
Testing.
Okay. Thank you. So, I think we said most of our comments during the last meeting that we had. We're still opposed for this fence. What we want to add for this is that we filed documents to get a permit for a gate for our parking lot, which probably will make her fence not necessary, the higher fence, because we're going to block the entrance of the deers to our parking lot so they will not jump to the other property. I can give you the...
I'm sorry, this is an application that will be coming before, that could be coming before the board. Your application is not on the agenda tonight, so they can't comment or review. The fact that you are making an application is certainly relevant to this, but considering anything on the application that you have is not before this board, so they can't provide any comments about your project.
I don't want any comments, I just want them to see. We are putting a gate there.
Sure. But I just want, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
As you can see, the gate will be tall enough to prevent from them to go in.
As soon as you start talking about what's on the application, we're getting into considering materials that are in violation of the Brown Act, and we can't consider items that are not on the agenda. This is an item that is not on the agenda of what you're talking about, okay? So we can't have them considering your application and the details of it. The fact that you made an application, that can be relevant, but the details of your application are not before the board right now.
Sure, I just want them to know that there's an application for a gate.
So that has been noted.
Thank you. Do you want to add something for that?
I have a technical question. The time allocation,
No,
no technical question?
Public comment will come afterwards. The appellant now has a time to do this. And then it'll be open up to the applicant to respond and public comment. And at that time, you are more than welcome to have your 3 minutes to speak to the board. Because they're the ones who you need to speak to, not our staff or our attorney. Because I don't have your name on the application.
My name isn't on the application. Town council insisted on a Zoom meeting, which I wasn't able to attend.
Okay, so this is getting beyond, you're taking away the time from the appellant. So the appellant is the person who made the appeal.
We will stop now, and if we have a comment, so we can continue with the...
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
You can turn the time off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now it's an opportunity for the public to provide.
It's
No, it's
the applicant.
applicant. The applicant has time now, 10 minutes. Thank you.
You could bring another chair up if you wish. Okay.
Hi, my name is Firuze Hariri. I am the applicant and the owner of 163 Avenida Miraflores. Sorry. As you all know that I had stated before, we need this fence as a security for my property. We had, as you know, again, many issues with animals jumping to our yard, and especially deers, which I am so afraid of, especially of the disease they carry, and as well as for our safety. And as I mentioned last meeting, that I actually saw 2 deers, huge ones, right by my daughter's bedroom, which was they were trying to get into our bedroom, to her bedroom, which she was screaming. And of course, I chased them out with a stick, and they went, of course, right where this fence I'm proposing to build. The fence, it's low enough now because, as you know, they had made us make it low many years ago, and we didn't mind it because there were so many trees and shrubs at that time over there, which was prohibiting any deers or animals to jump or come to our property. But then, after our neighbor have done some remodeling and cleaned up that driveway, pulled all the trees and shrubs out of that area, now, of course, is like a playground for the deers to just hop into my property. Regarding to her comment that she is planning to have a fence or a gate tall enough in her property, so the deers won't come to my so the deers at that time will not be able to come to my property. I do not see that there's any relevance with that. I need to secure my property on my property, not through her property, not through her gates or whatever else she's proposing. And now I'm going to let my architect, Mr. Satter, to take the microphone. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to bring up the fact that we took the recommendations of the board. Last time we changed the composition of the gate, removed the top member and turned it into a wire and wood fence, type of fence that the board recommended. And you know, really, this is a pretty simple matter of just being able to have a deer fence so that the deer don't eat the vegetation and potential Lyme disease. And we don't see any negative impact to the neighbors. So I don't understand what the issue is here, really. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. At this point, can we provide comments? Can we pose questions to the applicant and the appellant?
You can certainly do that. You can do that before the public comment or after the public comment, or both, at both times.
Okay.
So you can certainly pose questions to clarify more
Okay.
before you open to public comment.
Does anybody on the board have comments or questions at this point?
I'm not quite sure what's happening here, to tell you the truth. I understand there is an appeal, but I don't know where the appeal is. Is it before the town council or before us?
Board Member Malat, I'm sorry, can you turn on your microphone when you speak? And I'd be happy to answer. So what we have here is a staff level determination that is being appealed, and it's being appealed to this body, and this is the final determination, is what's before you.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
I just had a question. Is staff able to pull up just the latest detail? Like, is there architectural detail? I was trying to find it in my...
I actually have a question to the applicant. Where is the fence going to be located with respect to the property line? Is it going to be inboard, or is it going to be on top of, or is it going to be?
What I would request
You
is...
must go to the mic,
Yeah.
so, because I have people in the public telling me they can't hear, so I need people to go to
If
the
we can
mic.
have the applicant, if you're going to address the applicant, if we can have the applicant go to sit at the table, and so we can speak into the microphone.
The fence between the two properties is going to be located on the property line.
On the property line, okay. And the measurement of the height is based on the elevation that's stipulated in the code, right? Is that
That's
correct? Okay,
yes.
just want to
It's
confirm
going to
that.
be measured from the surface of the driveway, 6 feet up.
So the drawings that were included in here with the detail are not quite accurate anymore because we're now using a different profile of the fence, is that correct?
No, they are accurate. Actually, I showed the profile of the fence, the 6 feet from the level of the driveway.
Oh, I see the actual detail, sorry, I was on the wrong page, thank you.
All right.
Does anybody else have any questions for the applicant or the appellant? Okay, thank you. If there are no questions, we're going to open it up to the public, and if you can come up to the mic, we have 3 minutes, and please state your name and your address, please. Thank you. Please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Chester Judah, 166 Avenida Miraflores. I've got a couple of questions about this allocation of time. You said I wasn't listed as an applicant.
That is correct.
I have a list here of the applicants. Is this the list you're referring to?
I can't see that far, honestly, sir. My X-ray vision is not working tonight.
I thought you had the same green sheet.
No, so this is the appellants.
Who's the applicant?
The applicant is Mohammed Sadria.
Correct.
Yes.
Feruze got up and spoke.
She's the property owner.
Yes,
I mean,
the representative of the property owner is part of it, and the property owner is the applicant as well. I think our time is best served if you want to make your public comment about the project.
yeah, we'll restart your time now, sir. So if you'd like to speak, that would be great. Thank you.
Something really sordid about all this. 23 years ago, I had two neighbors across the street who couldn't stand each other. And I've documented it all. As I wrote, and I could read this to you, but I see that you all have copies, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. As the record shows, the original application for the fence that currently exists was accompanied by incidents of trespass, assault, arrest, intimidation, bribery, all resulting in a hate fence used to aggressively delineate the border between two feuding neighbors. I got involved trying to work this thing out with the neighbors. I didn't dislike either of them. I didn't want a 6-foot spiked wrought iron fence along Avenida Miraflores. I didn't want to be collateral damage in this battle. I feel I'm in the same position now. 23 years later, all of a sudden, deer are a problem. Something's changed in here. And I have this suspicion that there's a hatred and the deer are the same cover they were used for before. The applicant talks about needing a fence to protect her from the deer. Originally, she was granted a permit to build a perimeter fence around her house. She never built a perimeter fence. She never built a fence along the backside of her property. The material for that fence sat in her driveway for the last 20 years. She didn't want to build a fence for deer. She wanted to do a spiked wrought iron fence to delineate a boundary between two warring neighbors. That's why there's no fence in the back. If she wanted a fence for the deer, she would have built the fence back there. And the applicant takes no responsibility for the lethal nature of her fence. Initially, she denied she even had knowledge of the problem. And then I got a neighbor, I think he was from 2014, to document the fact that he was lifting fawns off of the spike fence, and he approached her about doing something about it. She blew him off. So a couple years ago, I get a call from a daughter of the lady across the street that she thinks she sees a fawn on the spiked fence. And I know this spiked fence isn't applicable to specifically what they're appealing for now, but there's a mentality here, there's an irresponsibility here. She's going to build a fence, a 5-foot fence, and there's evidence here. I don't think you understand the code. You can build a 6-foot fence. You can build a 6-foot fence on your side, even if it's a foot down. The code says I think you can go to 8 feet. So you can do a 6-foot fence over a 10-foot high boundary and go to 8 feet. So I think she's entitled to an 8-foot fence. But anyway,
I'm sorry, your time's up, but if you'd like to finish your sentence, that would be great. If you want to finish your thought.
I think the only resolution of this is to take it to the next level. I'm really disappointed in the sloppiness in this procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anybody else from the public who'd like to speak, please come up now and please provide your name and your address. Thank you.
My name's Kathleen Gallagher, 166 Avenida Miraflores. I just wanted to clarify something because I've seen photos of dead deer. Those dead deer were way in the back of the property, down the back of the hill. The subject property here this evening is just a small area that runs along Avenida Miraflores. Secondly, it's rare that we see deer around our area anymore. I haven't seen a deer in 2 months. The coyotes have killed off most of them, and studies show that when coyotes invade an area, 80% of the deer are killed off. So in my opinion, deer aren't really that much of an issue for this section of the property that you see up here. The dead deer were way in the back, on the back of the hillside. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to speak at this time? Okay. Then we will close it off.
I do believe the appellant does have a right to respond.
Okay. And how long does the appellant have?
They still have some time remaining on their previous time, so.
Okay. I think, you didn't use all your time, so,
and-
yeah.
Yeah.
And, actually, the rules say the applicant and the appellant get equal time, so.
Okay.
Okay. So I just wanna, okay, so the fence that you want to build is taking a proportion of the sea view, the view that you can see of the bay, and it's really,
I'm sorry, can you just be a little closer to the microphone just so we can make sure, or pull it closer to you? Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
So it's a big proportion of the view, of the sea view that we have now. And we really want to continue see this sea view. And I know that, I don't know exactly how many years ago, the applicant, she sued the neighbor across the street from her for planting trees there that blocked her view. So from one end, she wants to see the view, right? This is why she sued the neighbor, and she won. Now we cannot plant any trees there. Now she wants to block our view. I don't see why, like, it's two faces. She's blocking the view, and we are against this fence. There's no issue with deers. We didn't see any deer. We have cameras all over. There's no deers anywhere. This is just an excuse. The deers were down. All the pictures that you have there of the deers, the dead deers, it's down there. She didn't even care when they told her that there are dead deers on her fence. She kicked them. She said, let the nature do their course. Seriously, this is just an excuse. There's a big fight for years, many years in the past between her and all the previous owners of the property that we now own. And she's just continuing this. There's just an excuse. And the fence, I'm telling you, it's like regime that you don't even want to go there. Dark regime, I'm afraid every time I see this fence. This is what she wants. And it's ugly. That's it. Thank you.
So then, does the applicant have?
The applicant has a right as well to respond to
Okay.
the comments that have been made.
And we should keep their time to be equal time. So by my calculation, there's not a whole lot of time for the
It's about
applicant.
2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
2.5 minutes, yes. Okay, thank you.
I just wanted a response to her comment that, my neighbor's comment that the fence that I am proposing, or actually you guys have proposed for me to do, is ugly. I think she forgot that her whole fence around her property, which she has fully covered, it's exact same fence as the one I'm proposing for that little area, which means it's going to be blending in with the rest of her house, with the rest of the fence along her property line. If it's up to me, I would like to have the wrought iron, which I proposed originally, without the spike, of course, which to me, I think it will be a lot prettier and a lot nicer. And also, she was referring to the blocking the view as the pictures that I think, if she could, would you please show the pictures that I took that shows clearly from their living space, not from their garage, from their living space, which is pretty high up. When they look down, it has the fence that I am proposing does not block any view whatsoever from their living space. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any other questions? I have actually a question, one more question. Are you capping all the remaining existing fence then?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are you capping the entire residual fence? So the fence that's not the new fence, but the residual, the one that's remaining and existing. Are you capping
The
those?
rest of the property, you
Yeah.
mean? No, we're not touching those.
Not
That's
touching
not in
that,
the
okay.
agenda at all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, the DRB is going to deliberate. We're closing off the hearing, and we will deliberate amongst ourselves. Would anybody like to start off?
I guess I'll lead us off on this one. I mean, so there's a lot of data points, right? And I guess I'm putting them into two columns, which is part of this application and not part of this application, right? There's an existing fence that seems to be a problem, but is not part of this application. I don't think it's our purview to go and require people to remove stuff that, you know, we don't like, that's not part of an application. There's, what is part of the application is the location of the fence, the materials that are going to be used, the height of that fence, and then there's also, you know, other data points of future applications or whatever, again, not part of this application. So I've really just focused in, I think, on both the initial meeting and this one on, like, you know, what is the view impact of the location, the height, the materials? You know, I think that I don't think any of us was supportive of the first version just because it did provide a view impact for the next door neighbor. You know, I guess also, you know, I think people are able to put up fences, you know, around their properties to protect deer or to keep, you know, whatever need they have to put up a fence, right? As long as it is something that's going to cause the minimum amount of impact. And I think that's kind of where we end up playing, you know, the appeal for, in some cases, when people disagree with what should go in. You know, I guess where I've gotten to on the new design, which is, you know, 2 posts, no top rail, you know, minimal wire design. I think that's probably the design that's going to impact a view the least compared to, you know, something that's heavier or larger or what was existing there now or something similar to what's around the property. So I guess, generally speaking, I tend to be supportive of the revised application as presented.
Yeah, you need to go to the, can you go to the mic? Because we're going to have to get this all recorded, so I need to make sure.
Is the right-hand detail there the fence that's
Yeah.
being proposed?
Yes.
Yes,
There is no top rail on it,
that's correct.
Specific to, I think that there's, I was able to find this page.
It's
There-
4x4
there's
too.
the one on the right, which doesn't have the top rail, is A, which is the side that's by the neighbors, and then the other one is the part that's B, if I'm understanding that correctly, staff.
That's correct.
What's the one on the
So it's, you know, the property line has the corner, so, yeah, Suzanne has it.
This is B right here, so this is
Right,
the one.
but where is this one located now? My recollection is that was everything along this line.
That's from here to here.
Yeah, fine.
Yep.
Can you describe which page you're looking at?
I'm looking at the detail on the right, which is
On A1.
on A1, which is a 4x4, as I recall, post, and 4x4-inch hog wire between it with no top rail, specifically so the view wasn't impaired as much as it might have been. That's true. And the one on the left is to replace the fence along the street frontage. So there, at the corner, there are 2 different types of fence meeting.
That's correct.
I think the fence that we proposed there is appropriate for the view. And I would point out to the applicants, if they do anything like this main driveway fence, that'll ruin their view. So,
I just want to comment that on the detail, it doesn't specify the size of the openings. It says 4x4 for the posts, but doesn't say the spacing of the hog wire. So I think we should specify that. I don't see it, and I could be incorrect, but I don't see the specs on that.
well, then it should be specified as 4-inch by 4-inch hog wire, and hog wire typically is, correct me if I'm wrong, 1/4-inch
Gauge.
dowels. So it's 4 gauge.
Yeah, the application at hand is to replace a corner fence, specific, a 42-foot swath between the two properties, and then along B, which looks like an 18-foot swath on the street side. I think I'm supportive. I am supportive of what's been proposed with the added condition that the hog wire spacing is 4-inch by 4-inch. And what's specified in here is what's allowed in the code. So, the height, so that's where I would sort of fall on this. Do we have any other comments?
The top wire of the hog wire is to be no more than 6 feet from the height of the driveway deck. That was specified before.
Yep.
Can you repeat that? I didn't catch that.
The top wire, we're going for this one. I think I do. The top wire of the hog wire, top horizontal wire, is to be no more than 6 feet, 0 inches above the paving of the driveway at that point.
Could I ask one thing for
It's
clarification?
not the paving of it's not the curb height.
There is a draft resolution that was included as part of the staff report, and we have language that says the fence should not exceed 6 feet in height as measured from the pavers of the driveway at 165 Avenida Miraflores. Is that a sufficient way to?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to add one more thing. If we could have a condition that the top wire of the hog wire is smooth, so there's no jagged little pieces on top, that would be great. I don't know if the rest of the board supports that, but that's something that I would like to see.
Grind them smooth.
We can add that as a condition.
Okay.
Can I ask for one more point of clarification? I apologize. So right now, we have it written that there's no top rail.
There is no top rail.
There's no top rail.
There's no top rail.
There is a top wire.
Top, thank you.
Yes.
And just so you know, I mean, when we say no top rail, it says no top right now. So when you make your motion, assuming if you are going to vote to pass it, we would recommend that you include that we make it no top rail instead of no top, so it's a little more
Okay.
clear.
Yes. So we have 3 conditions that we've set forth. One is no top rail. The second is that the spacing of the hog wire is 4 inches by 4 inches at minimum. The third is that the top wire is smoothed out, so there's no jagged edges, so there's no potential for getting cut. And so we are the scope right now is just the 42 feet and the 18 feet being discussed at this point. So if somebody would like to make a motion,
You're doing fine.
I'll make a motion with
You
these.
were there.
I'll make a motion with the 3 conditions as specified.
To
Do we
adopt
also
the
need
resolution.
to adopt the resolution, but
Yes.
we also need to deny the appeal? Or
Yes.
is- Okay.
Yeah. So the motion is to deny the appeal and adopt the resolution with the 3 conditions as discussed.
I'll second that.
Let's
All
have a
those in
vote
favor?
on
No,
the
you say
ayes.
all those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against, opposed? Hearing none, the motion is denied. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 1868 Mountain View Drive.
Can I just make a comment? Since we're all just getting back used to being in person, remember to turn on your mics. Also, remember to not just have them on, but pull them closer to you, especially you, Board Member Malat. I can't. It's hard for me to even hear you a little bit. So, and part of the reason is so we have a really good record for later on, if it's needed. Okay, so it's really important that we do it.
Try that again.
Hearing now?
No.
Here now?
There it goes.
Here now? Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
you turned it off.
Okay. Thank you.
You could probably keep it on as long as you don't, talk to yourself or something, yeah.
No foul language.
So this is a study session, so just trying to figure out the procedures in this, how we,
So what we normally do, we've done a study session once before. I believe it was for this project as well. And what we do is we allow the applicant to kind of talk through what the proposal is, and you provide comments to them. There are no decisions made tonight. There's direction that's given. There's no adoption of any kind of motion of any kind. So it's really just to have a good, healthy discussion about the design and to provide feedback to the architect and the applicant so they can move forward and figure out what they want to do at this site.
And is there a time limit or anything?
There is no time limit.
Okay, great.
But I see it doesn't appear that there's anybody here for public comment, but if someone,
That's right.
you
I
should
forgot
make
about
sure
that
to
part.
provide some some time for public comment.
Okay, great.
Forgot
Okay.
about that part.
And that could be sort of up to you filling out the session.
The crowd, okay. And there's nobody online, so I don't need to worry about
But
that.
we actually can't do that online any longer. So
Okay, great. So if the applicant can come up and I yield the floor to them.
Thanks. Thank you all for your time, and really appreciate any help you can give us. I mean, as you may recall, a few years ago when we went through the process, you provided direction with us, and that made the process just easier for us. To give you just a little background, I mean, June 1st this year will be 6 years since we purchased the house. My wife and I, I proposed through on the roof, like that is the place we wanted to start a family with. And after, being there, for living in the home for 3.5 years and just figuring out how we sort of live, even though at that time we didn't have, a baby. It was very clear with having 272, or both my parents are 72. My dad's had hip surgery, 2 knee surgeries just in the last 5 years. So coming into the driveway, coming into the house, needing to maximize, the space of our house and having bedrooms on the main floor with the kitchen, as my parents age, and we needed to be able to have maximum space in the middle of our house. There were some different comments made about keeping the single car park in the house, and it just wasn't a functional thing. There's also suggestions of putting a bedroom on the bottom floor, which the master bedroom being on the top floor with, a 3-year-old next, or this month, wasn't feasible, to have him climb up whatever it is, 25, 30 stairs. So the way that we designed the house was how we thought was most fit for today, as well as just moving into the future to raise a family. The time when I submitted the permit, which again, that was, I think it was December of 19, and then with COVID, we didn't have the hearing until October of 20. During that time, my wife was pregnant. We moved out of the house, and at that time, there still wasn't this urgent need for a garage. I mean, the prior house had a 5-by-5 foot closet that kept everything from my yard tools to car washing things. Everything was contained in one place, and it wasn't a huge issue. Fast forward, being out of that house now for 3 years in September, and having a 3-year-old, 1 car fits in a 2-car garage. Strollers, bikes, I mean, everything. If you have children, there's all sorts of different things I never knew that would be taking up all of the space within there. And then with the way that the lot is, being on a 45-degree hill, there's 35, 40 stairs down below. So I get nervous just thinking about a child walking up those stairs, let alone trying to carry a bike or sporting equipment or other things. So I guess it was, 6 months or so ago, when we thought about adding a garage, logistically it made the most sense that the garage would be on the left. It's close to the kitchen. If it's raining and you have to bring groceries in and stuff, it was all right there. Talked to the neighbors. They, suggested that we'd put it in front of the bridge and then behind the bridge, and it just functionally with turning around and trying to, keep the beautiful architecture of the building, it didn't make sense to us to put it there. So last, design review meeting, we presented where we wanted to ideally have the garage because it seemed the most functional. Now, coming here today, it seems that that is not an option regardless of reducing the scope or size of that garage. Ideally, we would like a garage, but if the only thing we can get is a carport, you know, I guess we can start there. I mean, something's better than nothing. I mean, I think between the rains, the weather, and having to put like an outside custom sort of structure to be able to hold sporting equipment and child things, we can do. But, you know, ideally that, you know, I mean, we can go something, we just need to figure out something so that, I mean, I think all the neighbors in my neighborhood and few streets, like everyone has garages. And then just being able to have, you know, something suitable garage to where we could potentially pull in, you know, past the bridge in the deep corner, I think makes the most sense, because any other placement, we'd be like, you'd be blocking the front door. And at least if the, you know, Jeff will go through where we're proposing, but at least that would allow to still have exit from the front door. So I guess as far as like style and other, so any sort of things that are concerning, you know, to any of you, like I'd like to be able to have a positive, you know, and get some feedback of what you feel would be best.
Thank you, board members. I'm Jeff Gibson, Winder Gibson Architects. I'll be pretty brief, but I just want to make sure you guys understand it. I think it's pretty straightforward, but we're proposing an open carport here that would be sort of in the, I'd say sort of the spirit of the original building, kind of, you know, posts on the corners, a flat roof, and just the sort of open structure, kind of tucked in the corner over here. And I just want to describe a little bit why it's there and why a couple things that were sort of mentioned at the last hearing maybe don't work that well. We felt like it was best to kind of push it down to the end of the line so it didn't interrupt the reading of the bridge, which is a piece of the original building that we all adore. So kind of moving it this way, anywhere in here, it felt like it just cluttered the bridge. The site is steepest, and there's actually quite a lot of planting over in this area. And the roof of this carport would be essentially pretty much level with the road, or even a little bit below the road. There'll be a fence and hedges along here. So really, to like anybody walking their dogs along the street, I feel like they'll essentially not see this. It's kind of just like right there at the bottom of the hill. And again, we felt like down the end there, it didn't disturb the reading of the rest of the house. It's convenient to go across this bridge structure that goes into the front door. We didn't really want to put it right in front of that front door. That also would clutter the bridge, and it felt kind of very unwelcoming to basically block our own front door with the carport. So we just pushed it as far as we could and made it as light as we could. I'd say, like, in reaction to your feedback from the last hearing, we had to go to the far other end of the spectrum, which is like, what's the lightest touch thing that we could do that would somehow at least satisfy some of the needs of this family. In that last meeting, there was some discussion about, like, well, why not maybe do what the old house did and sort of like put it inside the building. I mean, at this point, this is all framed, it's rough plumbed and rough electric. But even if it wasn't, let me just sort of briefly describe why I personally don't think that works that well. I mean, you can see the scale of a car. If we put a car in here, you'd get one car of parking, you'd lose one bedroom, both bathrooms, and really some of this bedroom as well. So you're sort of trading like a real family usage of two kids' bedrooms for one sort of nominally effective car. Down here, kind of same thing, like you bring the car in there, it basically kills the entire kitchen. And then furthermore, this area here, just so that you guys kind of understand it, this is this kind of really cool sort of trough of greenery that we have to try to maintain some of that original like floating feeling of the building. So in section that's right here, so the driveway is level, and then there's a retaining wall, and then the original, like, historic grade with a lot of nice planting is kind of in there. So in plan, it looks like you could just sort of like, sorry, it's a funny thing. It looks like you could just drive in here, but really this is like you can't drive across this. You have to make a bridge across it. And do we really want to sort of have like multiple bridges kind of cluttering up this floating feeling at the front of the building? So those were some of our thoughts about why this might be, if you guys could be okay with us having something, we felt like this is probably the best place for it. Doing an open carport over here seems like it's just going to agitate the neighbors and bring up a lesser version of the same issues raised in the last hearing. But at least over here, an aging parent could get out of the car. Thank you so much. You could load or unload a kid into a car seat out of the rain and have a quick trip over to the front door and get into the house. So that's just sort of where we were going with it, but you can see it's just a little 4-sheet set. We spent 3 or 4 hours drafting this. We just didn't want to invest a lot of time because the last hearing was pretty rough. And we just wanted to float this balloon and see what you guys thought and gather any feedback so that we could maybe try to chart a better path forward if there is one. So I think that's it, and obviously we're here for questions. I'll just stay in the chair because maybe you guys have questions for me, but let me know.
I know that, sorry. I know that you talked about the preliminary zoning analysis, but could you specify, so it's not going to add to GFA, but it's going to add to the lot coverage variance request? And so you need a reduced front setback, and can you describe those two, sort of what the numbers are showing, just so that we have a reference?
I don't remember the numbers offhand, but this is our side setback requirement. So it's encroaching a little bit into the side setback, but again, there's a lot of mature greenery already in place here. So we feel like even though it's kind of into the side setback, it's not really going to be very visible to this neighbor. And then this is our front setback line that cuts across here. So it's pretty solidly in the front setback.
Staff can probably help you with that. I think Christie's ready to answer that question.
Yeah.
So the required setback for the front in the RO2 zone property is 30 feet. The proposed garage will be located 710 from the front property line. As what he described as the side setback, we do not have a side setback within the front setback area. So the proposed carport is going to be located entirely within the front setback.
So we don't need sort of two separate variances. Once you're in the front setback, it doesn't matter that you're kind of also in a projection of the side setback.
That's correct.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I will say on obviously downslope lots, having garages in front setbacks is relatively common, right? Including those sort of crazy ones where all you see is the garage and then you drop down into the rest of the house and that kind of thing. At least with this one, we're sort of under street level.
I have one more question. So in the previous site plan, was that already paved all the way?
No, our paving stopped right here.
I see, okay.
And this was not paved.
Okay.
Yeah. We should maybe, Christy, you could help a little bit with the question about lot coverage, right? Because when we had a garage over here, so this is the ADU, so it doesn't count for lot coverage. But when we put the garage on top of it, even though we're putting it on top of a structure that's there, all of a sudden it counts as lot coverage. So now I think that this will be a lesser lot coverage variance than this would have been, maybe.
I do not have the specific dimensions compared between the proposed carport and the previously proposed garage.
Right.
But it looks like to me the previous proposed garage is bigger in footprint than the proposed carport in question.
Do you remember do you remember what the lot coverage request was last time? Just so I know the scale of this.
So the lot coverage proposed last time was 30.1%. whereas the previously approved coverage is 26.9.
Okay, and it's 30% is without the variance, so the .1 brought it over the variance.
No, the maximum for this lot is 15%.
It's 15%, okay,
That's
thank
right.
you. Okay, thanks. Sorry, I can't remember all these numbers.
And I'll also remind you that originally, a lot of our lot coverage variance was related to the pool and to the height of kind of some of the landscape structures. So yes, it's a lot coverage variance, but like it's not all house, basically. And then
Sorry.
in terms of FAR, I think this as a car structure won't count for FAR at all. Is that correct?
So if the proposed carport has more than 50% of vertical area being open, it will not count as gross floor area.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, if there's any other board members like to ask questions.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
First question is, how do you get to that front door from, if you're, say, parking up on the street and coming into the house?
Oh, we have a landscape stair here. So there's a stair previously approved, already
Okay.
permitted, that runs up here. I think it takes a little jog and it gets to the street. So that's how I would say a guest who doesn't park down here would get to our front door.
And
Or if they were very friendly, they could come across the bridge
how
and
would
we
they,
let them in that way.
how would they know to come across the bridge?
We really retained the bridge because of the vibe, because we think it's a cool element. It used to be the old front door of the house. It's a little scary walking across it.
It's only 4 feet wide. It's
Yeah,
not wide enough for 2 people to walk past
No, it's
each
not a
other.
great way.
So-
But we've kept it.
I would
and-
like to propose something to you for a moment here, which is just as a suggestion. Why didn't you just take the bridge off?
You know,
The bridge, we
yeah.
have a dog.
I'll- You're
You
not
need
at the
to
mic,
talk
so
into the mic, I'm sorry.
I'll respond for you because I know what you said. So we like the bridge. They have a dog. They're going to take the dog across the bridge and walk it on the street all the time. But more than that, the board members at the time, which Mr. Millot, I don't think you were on the board at that time. Everybody loved the bridge. Everybody was like, the bridge is like such a cool piece, and we're making so many changes to this structure that if we could hold on to the bridge, it felt like a good thing to save. But I, love to hear where you're going with that comment. Trade the bridge for a carport.
I'm
or
looking
something?
at the front of the house and seeing a trench that is unlandscaped, virtually unused, uninteresting. Effectively, it's a driveway. And I don't see how you're giving anything to the street. Could you explain what's going to go on in that zone between the curb and the house?
Yeah, there's a lot of landscaping from the curb to the edge of the driveway. We're not rendering it in these
But
Revit
that's got to be
drawings.
like that then.
It's fairly steep. I mean, it's like a 45-degree slope.
Are you doing any
steep.
terracing or anything?
It comes down to a retaining wall and then drops to the driveway, so it doesn't come straight to the
How
edge of
big
the
are those
driveway.
retaining walls? That's a 10 or 15-foot drop.
No, I think it's about a 4-foot retaining wall or something. That's all previously graded and permitted. So this is going to get landscaping in here. Then there is the driveway, and then we have this landscape zone in here as well. So there's sort of 2 strips of landscape in the driveway. In the current home, it's just sort of barren hillside. Or in the prior to this project home, it was just barren, like unplanted, essentially, except grass. Yeah. But I think one of the comments that came up last time was the feeling that the ability for pedestrians to then sort of look between the homes and see out in the distance was being inhibited by the garage over here. And when we've spoken to our neighbors, these neighbors over here had all said, why don't you try a garage over here? And we didn't think it was the best choice. It didn't work as well for the family. But this is, this is where the neighbors had been pointing towards, although they'd been thinking of it as a garage, not an open carport. And we'd be open to doing an actual enclosed garage there too, but we didn't we didn't want to shoot for the moon. We thought, well, let's see if a carport might work.
We're still in your presentation, so go ahead.
Oh, no,
I
just
think
question and
the
answers.
study session format allows us just to talk like,
Totally.
freely.
If that's the case, I'd like to make an alternative suggestion.
Into the mic,
I'd like to make
please.
an alternative suggestion. Could you put the floor plan back up on top there again and leave these two elevations on the bottom?
I can't. They're just individual sheets, but.
Okay, well, I'm going to get up over there, and I'm going to have to talk loudly.
You're going to have to use the microphone.
Take the handheld, yeah.
Take the handheld microphone right there, right there.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay, when you come down this driveway, you have to go all the way, the whole length, that's all driveway. And it looks like you're still claiming this as a preserve for a car park or something. Exactly. Because of that, you've got a concrete jungle down here, and you've got maybe 15 feet or 20 feet of possible landscaping up at the top there. If you took this and moved it to this bay, leaving and built it as though it were not touching this house, use the same front door, and build it as a stone element or a solid element that was as a foil to this modern glass box that we're trying to preserve here. Walk across that if you want to keep this bridge, do it just from here to here. But the bridge is not that sacred, and if it's screwing up a design that doesn't work very well in any other way, this would let you keep a private garden yard with an entry down there if you choose. You would be backing out of the garage into here and out, get rid of this raised section of the sort of useless space that's under the previously proposed garage. And all of that would solve a lot of your problems, and it would also make a garden on the upper level that you could presumably do something with the street to give back to the neighborhood. This house has taken so much from the neighborhood that I feel it needs to work really hard to get it back, to give some back. And from what I can tell, it wouldn't take any more FAR or lot coverage than your present proposal for a carport. I would make it a garage. And I don't see any other good alternatives to it. But I do think this front needs to be really well designed before you go any farther with, if you're going to put a carport down there. I do agree putting a garage at that level is probably the only place to put it that doesn't make the downhill mass bigger and the uphill mass bigger. And if you could put that garage in there so that it was a foil to the all glass and steel building that you've already created, that would, in effect, make the garage a part of the land form rather than a part of the building form. And I would heavily landscape the top of it. I mean, allow for 16 inches of planting or 2 feet of planting in some spaces on top of it. So it is a garden, so that it creates something for the street, so that it creates something for you.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're proposing there, sticking the garage way back in the corner, just makes an entire concrete jungle out in front of the house. You'll never have any landscaping there that'll control that. And I think you would be better off to move it over those 2 bays. I think the bays are 18 feet, I'm not sure. That's big enough for a car.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a better solution than either down the side or back in the corner there. But you're the architect, you can look at it and use it if you want to. In any case, I wouldn't support the garage on the side over here, but something up in the trench up there, I would. I don't think a carport's is a good idea. first thing you're going to want to do is close it and start using it as a storage. One of the great things about a garage is it provides storage for the house.
I mean, what would you think if it was here, but it had a
I think it's-
vegetated
I think
roof
it's a
and it was
mistake, and I think it
enclosed?
impairs the neighbors. The neighbors have a couple of big trees there. I'm not sure quite what it was. It wasn't an oak, but there was a redwood tree on the downhill side, and there's another large tree up there. Those won't always be there. Right now, they're doing you the favor of helping to hide your garage. But honestly, I think having an asphalt or concrete covering the whole damn place with concrete is a mistake.
I mean,
You would
this is already
remove- You would
approved.
take out half of the concrete you have to put in that driveway would be gone if you moved the carport over where I suggest. Remember, you got concrete in the carport too. So you'd reduce it by 50%, the amount of paving you would have.
You
up
might
there.
support like an enclosed garage instead of a
An
carport
enclosed
here
garage there. would
with a
allow you to-
vegetated roof.
Would allow you to go through, you could either put a bridge door across to somewhere in there or go through the front door as you proposed for your carport. And I think a garage would be a better solution, particularly if you plan on making a garden out of the top of it. That gives something back to the street, and you can act as a foil for that, for the house.
Right.
I don't think the bridge is as good a solution as that, and I don't think it's worth trying to keep the bridge for that upper level there, which may or may not be used, but if you want to have a nice entry at that level, walk across the top of the garage garden, the garage garden we'll call it, and then into the building.
Can I just make a comment too?
Sure.
With the, also on the third floor, not only for taking the dog out in the morning, but just with COVID and just the way business has changed personally, and I'm now working from home, that bridge would serve as a way for people to come, to meet me at the home office.
Sure.
And
It'd still work if you walked across the top of the garage.
and I guess, just personally, we love the simplicity of the bridge going into the house without something
Keep the
below.
bridge walking over the garage then, I don't care, but you need to move the garage.
But if we did say, I mean, is there, and I guess, for everyone's feedback, I mean, if we did a green roof and it's below the street, could that be considered? And then I guess the other side, from my side, just having gone to 20 of my neighbors' homes, like anyone on steep hills has easily that much concrete or more pulling into their properties, just the way the driveways are on Mountain View and Lagoon when they're downhill. So and most of them have it, just objectively looking at most properties, the garages are off to the side versus right in the center of
Well, if
space.
you want to keep 1,000 square feet of additional paving in front of your house, fine, but I'm trying to get you to give something to the city or something back to the neighbors in form of landscaping. I just think having that much concrete, you've wrapped concrete all the way around the front of your house. I mean, you've got concrete all around the back of your house. You're living on a hillside where you're supposed to be absorbing water into the hillside, and yet you're going to have to put concrete everywhere.
No, for sure. I hear you on that. It's just it's based on just sort of the neighbors, and it's one thing, I guess, if you were seeing those things from the street or not, and it just seems if you're an uphill neighbor looking at a vegetated rooftop that could be.
You need a mic, you need a mic, you need a mic. I got to have this recorded. I'm sorry, Jim.
Every time you come down this driveway and you drive about 100 feet over to here to park these cars, it means you're going to have to back about 80 feet down to here to get out. I mean, that's a tough choice. If you put a garage here, you're going to be pulling out this far. You could even slide it over to here, I suppose, and do it this way, but I would pull it back to here.
So these are 16-foot bays, so it's really just 48 feet that we're backing up as far as scale.
Not from here.
But I'm saying like out of the garage, it's just 48 feet.
1, 2, 3.
Can you guys share the mic when you're speaking, just so we have this preserved?
Yeah, I guess you could count from the part that it's parked, but I'm just saying as far as the cement visually, it's, 48 feet, or if you're looking at two less bays, then it's like 30 feet less, and it just seems like, ideally, if we can keep the architecture and floating, bridge and consider a rooftop, just plants and so forth, if I look at my neighbors, 10 neighbors down the street have well over like 80 feet getting in of concrete to 110 feet of getting into their place. And I'm just wondering, I'm so limited by just the way that our property is of like what the options are. And I just, I don't know what else.
I'd like to let Board Member Chung weigh in as well.
Yeah, so I don't like this design simply because I think there was a lot better way, and it was the application that we saw last time, in my opinion, right? I guess number one, I'm not a fan of carports. Like, they get piled up with junk. I see sometimes people like drape canvases on them, or eventually they get turned into garages anyway, right? Design review board 10 or 20 years from now or something like that, the application comes through and no one remembers how much, time was spent on it. I also like the location of it here, like it kind of interferes with, I was one of the ones that liked the walkway, and I think it kind of interferes with it because like the renderings don't really show the fact that it's going to be the same, pretty much almost the exact same height. I mean, it's coming up, the height of the carport, and yeah, I mean, it's essentially like it's taking away from the walkway. And then I guess also, like, just from a flow standpoint, like you unload groceries from cars and you bring them into the kitchen, and so why not have your cars parked as close to the kitchen as possible? Or in the case of the original proposal, it had storage, so you're taking your bicycle and putting it on the car, or you're taking your sports equipment and throwing it into the car. So, like, again, I understand that the applicant kind of came back with this because I think I was the only one, I was kind of out in the tree limb by myself last time as the one that was supporting, the other place in the garage, because I think the only downside of the other location is that people that are walking down the street are going to have to look at a garage in that spot versus a little bit more view, but you're already looking at like developed stuff. You're looking at the top of an ADU. And if I have to choose between looking at a carport, like a carport roof really close to the street versus a garage on top of ADU, I'll take the garage on top of the ADU as far as just like walking down the street. And then I guess the concrete, I understand your points, but it's an existing thing, and I think it's unfortunate that the original house went in so far away from the street, something that I think that we would probably discourage today. But it's I understand the applicant didn't want to cut down a pretty large steel structure and move the house back a few feet just to close that in. Like, if you have that exact same amount of concrete at street level, like you're just walking down and someone's, there's lots of houses that have that much concrete, but you don't notice it because it's at 3 feet below you. With this one, you're looking down on it. I guess if this is what the applicant wants and it gets other members more supportive of it, but I personally tend to think that from just a design standpoint, and we are the design review board, I think that the previous design was better. That had an enclosed garage, had the storage. This is going to be cumbersome. I'm trying to just envision pulling out of this. Are you going to pull out, do a U-turn? Maybe there's something in the U-turn space. Do you back all the way out and try to do a rear onto Mountain View from there? I think that the less you have to back out in these tight situations, the better. I've got a pretty tight pull out for where I am on Corinthian Island, and it's short, but I wish it was shorter. I tend to, again, it comes down to I think how the two of you felt, because I was more supportive of the original one.
Board Member Chung, can I just ask you, in this area, when we go back to the plan, we were, in the last hearing, we were trying to, you know, permit basically this whole sort of long L shape. And we had floated an idea to the neighbors where we would cut this back part off, and so we would reduce the amount of structure you see from the downhill side, so that you wouldn't have this part out here wouldn't be a two-story volume. So we'd sort of give up some of the storage space or a small third car that could fit down in there. And that, you know, we thought that was sort of a compromise, but we didn't want to bring that option back today because we felt like that was so far from the nature of the conversation. I mean, it's just interesting to hear you sort of put this whole location back on the table at all, but maybe that's not going to catch any wind with the other board members, so.
Yeah, it was pretty clear I was in a we had two other board members on at the time, and it was pretty clear I was in a 4-1 minority on that one. Like, I don't think necessarily cutting off the back of the garage, like, I think it does more harm from eliminating storage than it does, like, the benefit. Like, you're not gonna see that piece from the street, and then a downhill neighbor is still gonna see the garage, and I think having that is not gonna, it's not going to be that much more mass, that much close. Again, my opinion, I went into the downhill neighbors, side/backyard, both on the original application and again this time, and I don't think that amount of removal necessarily does that much, but, the question should probably be to the other board members to see if there's, if there's a scenario that they support in that location. But
I haven't spoken yet, but I'm actually not supportive of the one that you did last time of that location. I think it destroyed the singularity of that volume, and it sort of mushed it up. And I felt like there was something singular about just having that volume and just being pristine at that volume. I do like that bridge. I have very, very strong affinity towards that bridge. I look at this carport. It seems like a great location. I mean, it has to be a green roof. It has to be a green roof. It cannot be like a solid roof. It has to be a green roof. My preference would have been, gosh, what if you had flipped the whole partie in the middle, the two middle bays, and had the entrance actually underneath the bridge? Yeah, then the stairs would have been flipped, but you can't change that. I mean, that's the plan that's already being built. But that would have actually resolved a bunch of different things, because you would have slipped that carport in actually inboard. Yeah, yeah, that would have been the ideal scenario, but it's.
yeah, I'd hate to see anything go under the bridge, because I remember going when I first moved to Tebron in the 90s, and I remember driving just around up in the hills and looking at places, and I remember specifically driving by this house and looking at the bridge and just saying to myself, wow, that's cool design. And I don't think I probably would have said that if there was like a garage or something like smack dab under.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that the garage would be under there. I think the front door would have been under the bridge.
Oh, moving the door. Oh,
Yeah, so flip the middle two bays and the
Instead, yeah.
stairs
Sorry,
would have been
okay, I
flipped.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
That would have been like ideal, because then you could push back the carport inboard. That, it would have been in that bay.
Okay, I thought you were agreeing with Jim had kind of said.
No,
tuck it under the bridge.
I don't see how you can have a bridge that becomes a roof that becomes a bridge or something. That's,
Well, I mean, I see how it can work functionally, but it won't feel like the bridge. It won't feel like the bridge that's
yeah,
there today.
you're right, yeah,
It will
that's,
feel like a landscape path, kind
yeah,
of.
yeah, and
I
I'm
mean, it
not,
could be cool in a totally separate partie, but it won't be the bridge.
there's
anymore.
something special about the bridge.
Yeah.
But
But like if this became combining, hybridizing some of these ideas, if this became the portions of the wall, if this became a solid garage instead of a carport, and the portions of the wall that were visible were stone clad, so it had this like earthy, almost like it's something that maybe predated the modern house, right? Like a historic residue or something. And then it had a really generous green roof on top of it. So that really what it is it's like a piece of the land.
yeah, I was actually, sorry.
You can lift the whole thing.
Sorry, having a bunch of architects in the room is not very helpful. So this bay right here, it's kind of not this, and you want it to be separate, right? This kind of wants to read as part of that landscape over there. It wants to be part of that. I'm wondering if there's a way to connect that so it feels like it's part of that, and rather than the concrete jungle. So it's, what you feel is that there's a landscape on top, and then the concrete kind of slips underneath. So it becomes part of that hillside. And And I'm wondering if there's a way to embed that more, so it doesn't become another one of these. It's actually one of those. Because I like Jim's idea of, it's part of that berm up there, and so there's probably a way to make it feel that way. No, like, right now, this is like kind of separated, so I'm just saying, like, what if it becomes part of the landscape?
Yeah, we thought about that too. Like, we thought maybe what you'd want to do is take this earth here and maybe like come down a little ways, but then start to roll it in so that this wall is like partly buried, at least partly buried. Maybe not like fully buried, because that maybe just seems like an artificial grade plane, but like, but if this feels like it sort of does this a little bit, and so then this thing feels really embedded in the ground instead of standing on the ground. And what's exposed is stone.
Disappear in the ground, and that's the way to do that, is to keep it level from the street.
Yeah, but that would be, I mean, I don't know if we really want to fill this whole triangle. We could, but part of it is some of this isn't even our land. This is also like
Well,
forward.
it's town property,
town
but
property,
you have
yeah.
access over it.
Yeah.
But then also just be, I think something personally, something in between this all.
Can you give him the mic, please? Sorry, we do have to record all of this.
Yeah, I think, if we could consider something in between, because then it still allows the bridge to float a lot more. Because the higher you bring the dirt into the garage, then it will compete with the bridge.
Well,
But you can also kind of
only
fill it
need-
with planting,
You only need an
too.
8-foot ceiling in the garage, and I
Yeah.
measured, it's 10 feet from the bridge to the dirt that's down there right now, and that could be lowered slightly.
No, because that has to level out with the
Not over
the bridge.
Not because of that trench you have there in between the house and that area. It doesn't have to be the same height.
Yeah.
A small grade in a sidewalk will get you up a couple of steps or whatever you feel you need.
Mm-hmm.
But the point being, I think the garage definitely should be part of the hill, not part of the house.
Right.
And this, to
Yeah.
keep that separation going.
And I'm just not as, I haven't done architecture in a long time, but the height of this is higher than the bridge, the garage. Is there any way to push that down a little bit?
Well, that's where they've got it drawn, but they don't need to.
Well,
I mean, like,
yeah, I mean, I
that's-
don't think we can feasibly push the actual driveway itself, like the driveway surface down,
But
because there've already been like piers drilled associated with retaining walls that go on the two sides, and like that driveway is, I think,
No, I'm
it's
talking
pretty
about the
set
roof.
already.
The roof of the garage right now is 10 feet high. It's higher than the level of the bridge.
Right, we can push that down a little bit, but if we're going to make it a green roof, it's going to get sort of thickened back up, right?
Yeah,
You need
yeah,
a
it is.
pretty heavy structure, and then you need some planting depth. So I don't know, like, we can maybe make the ceiling a little bit lower, but I don't know if that will result in the roof being lower than what we're showing, but maybe that's okay because it's planted.
What is the elevation of the street at that spot elevation along the street if you're cutting it this way? Sorry. Yeah. So that's the level of the street right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty close. I mean, it's up a tiny bit, but again, I think if the soil in this area kind of fills a little bit, and our landscape architect plants some things with some volume in here, right? Because it's not always about just reading the soil; it's about reading the top of the greenery.
What do you think?
Right? Shrub it up, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, if this is the location it's
bunker.
going to be, I think there's definitely stuff that can be done to minimize and add some greenery between the garage and the street. I think it's too. I mean, I see where you're going with trying to connect it. I think it's just too far away. I think there's still going to be the gap, and it's probably landscaping that solves it, not trying to push the structure closer to the hill.
It's not just pushing the structure closer to the hill, it's trying to make the structure the garage structure, not be part of the house.
Yeah.
It wants to have a different aesthetic so that it looks like an earth form, say, instead of this pristine box that
Yeah.
is the house.
That's what we ended up
Front
doing
side,
with this whole
there's
terrace
actually-
area.
It's 65 feet long and 2 stories high. And I think the trench idea is okay, but it's going to be a hard sell from, from a landscape standpoint.
But I think there's some, like, to fit the cars in, we had to kind of notch a little bit this way, but maybe instead of notching this way, we notch this way, right? Which will reduce this front setback a little bit, but it doesn't really matter because it's all going to disappear into the hillside anyway.
But I do think you should do a garage instead of a carport.
I mean, if we're going to do a planted roof and we're going to try to hide the walls by sort of burying it and maybe have any of the exposed part of the walls be stone clad or something, I think it has to be a garage. It's not in the spirit of a carport anymore at all. It starts to sound like a carport after an earthquake or something. So
Yeah, I think the carport would have been, I mean, that's what it was. I mean, that's what it is right now. I mean, not at this moment, but that's what it was. It was a carport. It was a breezeway going underneath. Yeah, exactly, right there. So
that's
that nostalgia is like gone. It's past.
No, but the way that we ended up solving this loggia piece was to stone clad it and also have it read in it. So I kind of like that this will be like a small embedded preview of this too, right? Like a little, we're not introducing a third language on the site. We're using the second language that we already figured out, but we're trying to also really minimize its visual presence.
I think the carport idea was it's just too small to be, it's just like a small gesture at this point of what it used to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to suggest is that you remove the previously proposed parking deck and the area underneath it back so that you have just a reasonable parking space, not past your G1 line if you're looking on sheet AG 1.12.
Like over here? I think it's physically already built.
It isn't already built. There's some steel in there.
The steel's there.
We're trying to, what you've got is a house that's got 3,000 square feet of visual bulk on the hillside, visual mass on the hillside, from the downhill side now. On the uphill side, it's only 2/3 of that. But you're adding another 25% of visual mass with the garage, you were. And you're adding also a chunk with this carport sticking out and that silly storage unit underneath it, which just ought to be gotten rid of. It's not going to, you're not going to store anything in there. It's got no headroom and it doesn't do anything.
In here?
Yeah, that one that's out. Yeah, that's.
It's not storage. This is sort of double layered over the ADU roof to make the grade work to turn around in here.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But you don't need any more turnaround than what you've got with the car park there, rather than the extra 8 or 10 feet there. And frankly, the car park doesn't need to be as long as it is, but I would try to address reducing the visual mass of that and cutting it back farther into the hillside so that from below you don't see all of this stuff. Your house has the unfortunate problem of going directly against the design guidelines for hillside
Board Member
housing.
Malat, I'm sorry, the microphone. You can, the microphone base moves, so you can move the base closer to you.
I'll sit up. It's a little more proper. Your house is one of the few in Tiburon that is going directly against all the design guidelines, which were done after the house was originally built. You took the approach to tear everything out of that frame, but keep the steel frame so you got the 37-foot height left in there, rather than trying to step down the hillside or do something else to the house that might make it a little easier on the eyes for people that are below the house. I went to the house that is directly below that house, and it is one retaining wall and step after another. It's just an enormous volume of build down the hillside, and that's because you're trying to make level ground on a steep slope. It's about, it's about a 4 and 12 slope, maybe 5 and 12. And everything about this house is fighting the site. Now, the original concept for the house was to float above the site, but your remodeling job has anchored it to the site and made it even bigger and bossier and more volume all the way down the hillside. So what I'm suggesting, or I think you have to work on the uphill side, is give something back to the community for a change. That house has taken too much from us already. I just think I think the suggestions here tonight have been good ones. I like both of my co-board members' suggestions, and we're just trying to do what's good for you and the town. And if you get another garage or a garage put in there, and it has to be there, think carefully about making that garage participate with the street.
Sure.
So it does something comfortable.
Can we go, because Jim, I'm a little confused on the turnaround point. Can we go to the, one of the other, where it shows, from like, it basically shows the ADU, looking down on the ADU? Three-dimensional?
Oh.
Yeah, can we zoom way in on the bottom right corner?
Can you guys do that? I can't do that. Like here?
No, the
No,
other,
the other
other
side.
side.
I was just curious what Jim was talking about, like, because it seems like the minimum amount you would need in order to back into and turn around.
In our original,
We're trying to do this for you. Here, we're zooming
There we
in
go,
for
there we
you.
go.
yeah, in our original planning, and this
The other
doesn't
one, the other
really.
one? The right side?
This is not super
go.
accurately shaped here because this is actually at a slope. It doesn't really show that way because of the perspective, but this is actually a 15% slope in this area.
Before
here.
you get to the framing, then it's not.
Yeah,
Then it's level.
once you get to the
steel framing
the
is
steel
level.
frame part, yeah.
Well, steel framing is
Yeah,
2/3 of that area there, so there may be a little slope getting to it, but.
yeah, in here. Yeah. And when we originally permitted this, our civil engineer showed the backup turnaround diagram, and that's actually exactly how we had this line here originally out here further, and then it was moved back to here because that was the minimum for the turnaround.
Well, I'm just saying you don't need that extra little bump
Oh, like
on the
this
downhill
part,
side.
That bump?
this part
Yeah,
right here.
it's a non-functional bump.
We can look at it and see if it could be, if it's possible to remove it or
I
not.
recognize you want to get into the kitchen at that point, that's fine. You've got to, that's where the car will be parked most of the time. There will be 2 cars used regularly in the house at least, and one of them will be parked there.
Yeah, one will be here and 1 or 2 will be in the
Yeah,
garage.
yeah.
Yeah.
What is that roof?
What's the roof?
Yeah, on that ADU. Is it elastomeric? Sorry, yeah.
Oh, on here, yeah, it's like an elastomeric drive surface.
Okay, and then the one on the lower part, yeah, what's that? Is that elastomeric as well?
Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't remember. I think it's a modified bitumen.
Okay,
Yeah. Or maybe it's TPO. I don't remember which.
okay.
Yeah, sorry. It's been
Okay.
a long time now. Okay, well, we'll take a look at this and see if there's something that can be carved back out from this if we're not building the garage there.
Can we put greenery? Another green roof?
I mean, we could put some pots on top of it. Dog walkers looking down the driveway.
Well, it's a view from the city. You can actually see the building from the bottom, sorry.
Yeah.
It's the most prominent building that you see from the hillside from the town. And so
And I think once the white wrap comes off of it,
It won't look
and you
as-
can see this in the dark
Yeah.
stone base and everything, it's not going to look like it does today. If it looks like it does today, we're all in trouble.
Well,
But
Give him the mic.
got it.
yeah,
Okay.
You will need to have a mic to
When you're,
speak.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, and then I was just saying that
We gotta
there's
get 2 mics.
scaffolding
Okay.
all around it. So I mean, like right now, it
Is there-
easily looks like 15% plus bigger than the house actually is once the scaffolding and wrap
Okay.
comes off.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, my only comment was just going to be that we provide maybe some feedback, because it sounds like everybody would potentially be supportive of a garage, right? Like an enclosed garage versus the carport?
On the
or-
uphill side, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to add a note. In the last meeting, as I record, some of the DRB members have a difficult time to make the findings of the variance requests on the lot coverage, on the proposed floor area exceptions, and potentially this proposal, if it's located in the front setback, it will add a variance request. So I just want that to be noted as part of the discussions if you provide suggestions to the applicants tonight.
Yeah, I think I would be supportive of the two variance requests. I mean, the front side setback as well, because of the location of that. And I could make the findings. I could potentially make the findings if we really talk about this as being more part of the berm rather than part of the building. That would sort of sway me. And having the greenery is really important for me. Like, it's not a structure. It's not a box. It's part of the earth.
Those would all sort of mitigate the impact, some of the impacts of the
Yeah.
variance.
Yeah.
And in terms of the variance finding, it would be sort of centered around similar properties often enjoy this right of a garage in the front setback,
I
right?
don't think you'll find one up there.
Well, maybe not on that street, but it's not uncommon. Yeah.
I could make the findings for the variance if the garage was really well camouflaged into the hillside, if it had a garden on top of it, and if, I would prefer to see it closer to this end, but if it's tucked back in that corner, fine. But I think you have to, it is one of those things that depends on a good set of drawings and something that'll persuade us. I also would like to see a section through the site that you carefully avoided showing through the entire site, top to bottom, so that we can see the relative heights of your elements, and that goes all the way down to the property line.
Yeah, well, that's going to be scary looking.
Yeah, well,
I mean, we have it. It's previously shown and approved in the last.
It's going to be a. I mean, the other side of the building.
But
Yeah.
just to see what we're proposing there, with an elevation on the section that shows the garage front that you're proposing.
Right.
And an elevation the other way showing the bridge front.
Right, sure.
Have you talked to your neighbor on the other side about? I mean, I know it's well shielded with.
She preferred it was where we had submitted last
Okay.
time, just with it being in the kitchen, and she had kids and thought that was functionally the best place.
But she's okay with this sort of location, do you think? I mean, she's not going to see it.
We decided this time, so several of the neighbors had suggested this location, not the Zacks who just bought the home over here.
Uh-huh.
They said, well, if we had to choose between this and this, we like this one better. But they didn't categorically say that they hated this one.
Yeah.
They just said if we had to choose, we'd choose this one. Whereas everyone else, the downhill neighbors,
But-
the across the street neighbors, everyone else said we like this one. But
what are the
we haven't
impacts?
we haven't gone back to the we wanted to come to you guys with a study session before going back to the neighbors, because we felt like these neighbors are kind of tired of us, and we don't want to go suggesting things to them that is just never possibly going to pass here. That's just sort of wasting everyone's time. So that's why we opted to do this as a study session, right? Gather your feedback, then we'll go talk to the neighbors again, since they had generally signaled that this general location was generally preferable. And so we'll develop it further and show how we can kind of berm it and camouflage it, and then, and then see what they say and do some neighbor outreach before we'd come back with a formal submittal to you.
I mean, I'm looking at I'm looking at Google Maps, and I can see that, you are getting closer to them, but there's a bunch of trees, so hopefully, there's not much going on. It's right there, that elevation. So, yeah.
Question for my fellow board members. Would you be okay with it being a little bit larger to add for some storage? Because I think that if we're okay with the garage, then.
If it's underground, yes.
Yeah, I like,
Christie, can you zoom this
garage,
back
I guess
to,
a garage without
like,
storage
full sheet?
becomes the storage.
They've got
and all of a
1,400 square feet underneath this house. That
Yeah.
is in one big room. They've got plenty of
Like
storage.
full sheet, we just zoom back in. Out.
Yeah,
I mean, the only thing that I'll add is it's difficult. I understand, and just to take a step back, we went and dug underneath the house because that is what all of my neighbors wanted when we did a remodel. No, the lady at the time where the Zacks are said in no way did she want us building out because it destroyed her view, and that's why we went down. Now, after being down, like, that's where we are today, and now having a 3-year-old son and watching him hit his head every 5 minutes, having him climb up 30 steps now, 6-7 years from now, not going to be a big deal, but like over the next 4 to 5, him taking stuff up is not a good idea. So anything that would be supportive of being able to keep things on that mid-level where my parents watch him and where he'll play and so forth is just very helpful with where I am in life right now with him.
and I guess,
You
Can
won't
I
be in
sh-
this house for 2 years, so he'll be 5. He'll be fine.
But if we do add a little storage, Board Member Chong, like if we expand the garage laterally a little bit this way,
Yes.
and we're burying it anyway, it's invisible.
As long as you're burying
Can,
it.
can you go back to the plan? I sort of want to
Like
specify.
if we expand not this way, but only this way.
Yeah, so, sorry. You can take this, pushing this back this way and then that way is what I'm supportive of.
yeah, I guess
And
maybe.
not far, but maybe a couple feet, 2-3 feet or something to have a.
Yeah, I
bank
mean,
of storage.
I can, I've got 3 kids under 11, right? And like, I don't want to drag my strollers, soccer balls, like up and down, like storing them like a whole like floor away from the car, right? Like you have to constantly be putting that stuff in and out of the car, the kites, the golf clubs. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff that you have to do when you have kids. And so I can definitely relate to the applicant of wanting to have some storage that's right beside the car so you can toss stuff in and go.
Like ironically, the further we expand the building this way, the more buried it is.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
push the garage into the ground then, so you can still get
Right.
planting on top of it.
Right.
Board Member Malat, the microphone police are out again.
Push the garage into the ground deeper rather
Right.
than pushing it up.
Okay. Okay, I think we can, it's 8:45, I'm tired. I bet you guys are too. I think you've given us a lot of feedback to work with, and this is exactly why I wanted to come here today, and I really appreciate it. You've got 3 very clever thinkers, and hearing you guys all start to coalesce around a set of ideas has been really helpful for me. Thank you.
So you have enough to go forward?
I do, yeah. I mean, your forum too, if there's anything else you guys want to say, but if you feel comfortable with this, I think it's enough for us to work something up, talk to the neighbors again, and see you at an undetermined future date.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize, you have this large bridge that sort of goes to that entire bay that may need a squeeze. Because I think I'm more comfortable you going into the front setback rather than the side setback. So, like, really emphasizing, yeah, that relationship.
I agree with that.
Well, this way? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just for the record, does not appear there's anybody from the public to make any other comments, so just for that to be clear.
There are no members of the public here.
There are no.
Nope.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Yep, we are adjourning. Thank
Well,
you.
Or do we need to vote on, or is there, or not vote, but?
You won't be
continue to-
voting on this. That's why I asked the question. Is the applicant clear with the direction that they've been given with respect to how to deal with the garage and carport / whatever he's going to do at the end? It's a lot of information.
Thank you, everybody.
Can we vote on different mics? Yeah, well,
It's
Not at
not
this-
on the agenda, Board
It's not on
Member
the
Chong.
agenda tonight, so we can't. If you'd like for me to put that on the next agenda, you can certainly email me to that effect.
And just, are we adjourned?
We have to adjourn the meeting.
We adjourned the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure.
Nicely done, Madam Kim.
Who's got a black pen? Is this a black pen? Can we borrow it?
Oh, man.
Is this one working?